I'm Roberto Baldwin, and this is Tomorrow Today's Sustainable Mobility Brief. The transportation world is evolving at a rate not seen in decades. The transition from fossil fuels to sustainable energy has brought with it some truly exciting opportunities, but also some confusion. I'll sift through the noise and share quick updates on the latest news, trends, and advancements that will impact our world for years to come. This week on the Tomorrow Today Briefs podcast, we had Joseph Constanty, News Director of Global Strategy and Corporate Development. Joseph, thank you so much for meeting me today, sitting down with me to talk about new. I think most people, when we're thinking about electrification, the big news is cars, SUVs, trucks. The big thing is that drag us from point A to B. The reality is that electrification also includes scooters, bicycles, motorcycles, and a lot of those are doing actually extremely well. You could go outside, really, in any American city, and you're going to see a lot more e-bikes than you might have seen even a few years ago. Does it surprise you, the growth of sales in e-bikes and in scooters, and the sort of weird lack of coverage about this growth?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I think we are in America, we're a four-wheel culture. So it is absolutely understandable that media would be covering the growth of four-wheel electrification, whether it's Tesla, GM, Ford, you name the brand. The electrification of two wheels in the United States and globally is not surprising to me whatsoever. Just to put it in perspective, if we just put motorized two-wheel vehicles, so think petrol, motorcycles, mopeds, scooters, things along those lines, they, on any given year, there's between 30 and 50% more two-wheelers in the world sold than four-wheelers. So electrifying two wheels is a huge priority for decarbonization of the transportation industry. Now, why isn't media covering it in the United States and in most English-speaking European nations? Is because the electrification of two wheels is not a huge priority there, and because manufacturing of two wheels is not a big homegrown business. Four wheels is. So where's media going to follow? It's going to follow the manufacturing base. If I look around the world, as I do, I'm responsible for global, the media coverage of electrification of two wheels in India is enormous. It's transforming overnight. They went from zero to over nearly a million electric scooters being sold in a given year. And to give you further reference, in China, every single year, there are at least 45 to 50 million electric two-wheelers sold every year.
Wow.
Just let that sink in for everyone. So they are really pushing the needle forward when it comes to electrification of two wheels, and that's why we've been able to grow so fast. Is because we have a strong base in our home country. It's allowed us to expand globally. And
while you're expanding globally, I went to Electrify Expo, and there's a huge demand for these. Everyone was in line to ride all of these e-bikes, to ride all these electric scooters, to ride electric motorcycles. But what does the customer look like, and where do they live? Is it what I think, people who live in urban areas, or is it like everywhere?
You could say it's everywhere all at one time, but in reality, where are we focused? We're focused on customers, young urban millennials that are living in the cities. They're using these typically to go to and from work, or on the weekend to go to the gym or hang out with friends. We see that in the United States. We see that in Europe, and kind of at a global reach. But as we move into certain new types of products like electric kick scooters, which do offer an awesome way to move around a city, we do see younger demographics picking these up, and even older demographics picking them up to move around suburban communities. So you'll see teenagers and kids buying them, or their parents buying them for their children. So that it's a toy. And these were originally designed many years ago as toys. It just so happened that like the Birds and the Limes of the world, made it okay for us adults to ride around on scooters, which is quite interesting. But in reality, the core customer is really living in inner cities, using it as a commuter. But we do see, as we expand our retail footprint, we do see new types of customers coming in, living in suburbs specifically.
As the U.S. market matures, what can we expect from new? Just a continue of just more and more people buying, realizing what is going on, realizing that not every trip needs a car. I think that's sort of the big weird realization for the United States, is that we're so car centric, we're so automobile centric about every movement outside of like cities with mass transit like New York or San Francisco or Chicago. We're so like we're we're programmed, and then we realize, wait, I could just get on a bike and I don't have to be a sweaty mess when I get somewhere.
Right. So I think so there's a couple questions embedded in one question there. So let me try to get at the root of it. So if we want to have more Americans not relying on their car every day to just go to the grocery store that's 1 mile down the street, we need to fix infrastructure. So right now, if we want it to be safe for two-wheelers, whether they're bicycles, electric scooters, small electric mopeds, then we need to make, lanes specifically dedicated to them and make them safe from the larger four-wheel passenger cars. And that's something that's not really happening at scale anywhere in the United States. You'll see pockets of it happening, good media covering what's happening in New York or Boston or elsewhere. But to be honest with you, it's not happening at scale. So that will be a major tool to help speed up the adoption of light electric vehicles and smaller vehicles. Now, where is new fitting into all this? I think we've always been a company, as we've gone around the world, we've realized that we have to purpose build our vehicles for the use case in different geographies. So a user in Amsterdam is very different than Milan or New York or Los Angeles. And we actually design different products for all those different geographies. In the United States, we do see a very, very fast adoption of electric kick scooters. So New continues to diversify our product range. And what does diversifying mean? It really, two things. One is the performance of the product. So there are a lot of early adopters and those adopters that, want bigger, faster, stronger type of vehicles. And then there's others that just want the bare bones. And, those are people that are using it for just general commuting, don't need anything extraordinary, and just want it at a really affordable price. And that's where now we're really ranging from, a $300 products to over $1,000 products in kick scooters. And really the difference between any of them is just the performance of those vehicles, the battery size, the motor size, and that's really it. And so as we look beyond that, we also think electric bikes are an interesting market in the United States, and we'll continue to slowly expand into that. That market is quite crowded. And then we're also obviously moving into other spaces altogether. I think we'll talk a little bit more about it, but there are these crossover spaces between like urban use of a vehicle and kind of off-road use of vehicles. And this area is very interesting in the United States right now. We see developing out of Southern California, Texas, and even Florida. So we see some new types of vehicle form factors being adopted in the United States for electric.
Yeah. Let's talk about the XQi3. How does that, And I've seen, as someone who rides a motorcycle for decades, I've seen sort of the decline of motorcycle ridership. And then COVID happened, and more people went out and bought motorcycles because they wanted to go outside and do something and feel, wind. And I think some of that is now I'm seeing a lot of these young people riding dirt bikes everywhere. And I haven't seen that in decades. And so, the electrification of that is interesting.
Yeah, so I think the electric dirt bike movement it's an interesting space for sure, because the market really started just a handful of years ago, just before COVID. So we're talking like 2018, 2019, there were hundreds of vehicles being sold. So now it's tens of thousands of vehicles being sold on an annual basis. And why the electric dirt bike is interesting is because it's a smaller form factor. So it allowed people of all abilities and kind of all ages to be able to jump on the back of these bikes and go for a ride in their suburban community or out on the dirt paths, depending on the legality of where you could ride these bikes. And so I think it was just the ease of which you could just jump on and ride was the reason why people adopted them so quickly. And the form factor itself is really cool. It's much cooler looking than, say, a moped, which is typically, not as masculine and dominant as some of these dirt bikes are. And so we see, the adoption rate in younger men trending into their 20s at a very, very high rate, especially in Southern California. And like I said, we're moving into Texas, Florida, and into the Northeast. We see, growing demands. And what's interesting about our XQi3, we looked at the market and we said, okay, all these dirt bike manufacturers are building bikes that are strictly for off-road, but a lot of people are illegally riding them on-road. So what we said is, let's develop two form factors. One that is for strictly off-road and one that is for on-road that could be used off-road. And what's the difference is that we have gone through all the processes. It takes a long time, but we've had years and years of manufacturing for the United States where we know how to get our DOT certifications, how to build out all of the lighting schematics, etc., to be able to make roadworthy vehicles in a affordable form factor for customers. So we're the first and only electric dirt bike company that actually makes both on-road and off-road versions where people can go get a license plate, register the vehicle, insure it, and drive around their suburban community, their city, whatever it might be, and be able to then also take it off-road at the same time.
So it's an electric DS.
Exactly.
Essentially, yeah. Like sort of, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've been an automotive journalist for a very long time, and one of the things is people always come up to me and they want to sort of be not angry but shame people who don't know how to use a manual transmission, which is don't do that. But I think that's also, because more and more vehicles don't have manual transmission. How is this person going to learn, et cetera, unless they're an enthusiast? And I think the same thing is probably happening in the motorcycle realm, especially with electric motorcycles, where that shame of not knowing how to shift gears on, even the old Vespas, you had to shift gears. I have a Vespa. I've ridden electric motorcycles, and everyone seems pretty much cool with it now. And I think the idea of twist and go and having all that torque is really appealing to a lot of people, especially new people.
Yeah, it's a different ride experience, right? If you are an enthusiast for a petrol motorbike and you love the sound, you love the rumble, you love handling, the gears, that is a specific ride experience. An electric ride experience is about full torque right from the instant that you pull that throttle. And that's what certain people get excited about. And they don't really care for that petrol experience. So there's, as we evolve and products evolve and become more digitized, people begin to expand, what type of experience they're looking for when they get on a dirt bike or any vehicle for that matter. I mean, you drive a Tesla Plaid and you go into cheetah mode and go into cheetah stance and launch mode and actually do it. It's one of the most thrilling riding experiences you can have. And so that's what you expect out of electric. Now, if you go jump into a Lamborghini, you're going to have a completely different driving experience. So I think this is, we're trying to electrification of two wheels. What we're trying to do with this electric dirt bike is bring a vehicle that is fun, exciting, can ride on road, can ride off road, and you really begin to understand that electric is cool, electric is fun, and at the same time, electric is doing good for the environment, decarbonizing the transportation industry.
And I think one last thing I just wanted to add about electric riding off road on an electric bike is that it's quiet, so the animals don't scatter. So if you want to see things, if you want to hear, if you want to be part of the environment a little bit more, electric dirt bikes are really great. It's one of the reasons why I really like the Wrangler 4xe, because it has an electric motor. So when you go off road, you can just have the electric motor and be able to just sort of like be in
experience.
Yeah, the experience, like have this completely different experience.
The nature of the sound.
Yeah.
We, many years ago, a fun anecdote is when we first launched New overseas, one of the first markets we went into was France, specifically Paris. And I can tell you that journalists back in 2016 weren't all that thrilled to talk about electric vehicles. We were very early in the adoption cycle. And one of the journalists didn't really want to ride, but I said, here, just take the keys and go ride. This was one of our high-speed electric mopeds. And he's like, okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes. 25 minutes later, he came back because he had so much fun. And he had a huge smile on his face. And the first thing he said to me, he said, it was so quiet. I could hear everything around me, even when I was moving at high speeds. And I said, exactly. And that's one of the beautiful parts about it. As you electrify more of the transportation industry, cities become more quiet. And that is really exciting to me. When I travel back to China, where I often do, and I used to live there for many, many years, the city streets are extremely quiet as compared to New York City or Miami or Philadelphia or wherever I go in the US, just because there are very, very few petrol vehicles in those cities. And if you see one when you're in China, it's like a dinosaur. It's that rare. Honestly,
just rocking around, it's bumbling about, roaring.
Yeah, roaring his way through. But that goes back to the dirt bikes. Is that the electric dirt bikes? Not only is it fun and a great riding experience, but you were saying is it's quiet. And it's great for hunters and any kind of nature enthusiast that just wants to go deep, into the woods, but wants to do it in a quiet and doesn't want to disturb, nature around them. Electric is definitely the choice vehicle for that. And these bikes have enough range to be able to, have a decent hunting day or a decent exploration day out there.
How do people get these? It's, you're selling at Best Buy, Walmart, as direct sales as well. I'm assuming, is there for the motorcycles? Or I do know that you're putting in showrooms in metropolitan areas, correct? Yeah,
we've had showrooms and independent bike dealers, in addition to Best Buy, Walmart, Kohl's, selling like the kick scooters. Mm-hmm. We also have these independent bike dealers, our own shops. We have in Miami, San Diego, and then we have motorcycle dealers all around the United States, and for that matter, globally. And so you can buy at any one of those physical stores. And then if you're looking for our kick scooters and our e-bikes, you can go to new.com and you can buy online as well. And we ship directly to your house. So we're really omni-channel approach when it comes to how you buy our vehicles. Those vehicles that need to be registered, so like our electric mopeds that are DOT and our XQi3 that is DOT, those need to be bought at licensed dealers because they need to register the vehicle, tax tags, the just what you would expect from a registration vehicle.
And at some of these, the showrooms and these dealerships, there's service staff. That's one of the, I bought my scooter from a place in San Francisco that had a service staff. They're a Vespa dealership. Then I went to another place because I ended up knowing it doesn't matter. I had to go to, a place to get my scooter, my Vespa serviced. This is different. And can you talk a little bit about the knowledge gap of hiring the service staff for these things? Just because everyone's used to, we have a carburetor or fuel injector, but now it's a completely, it's a new scenario for some of these service people.
Absolutely. And this is not just, this is a huge problem. There is a knowledge gap. And this is not just a problem in the United States. It's a global problem, especially in Europe. I'll give you an example. I always go back to Europe because that was our first market. So I know a lot of your listeners are American, but I think it's good to have a global approach. So in Germany, for example, they have a national federal trade school, vocational trade schools. And it's called the Berufsschulen. And the Berufsschulen is responsible for training all of the auto mechanics in the country. Well, we launched our first electric vehicles, and there were already electric cars in Germany by 2016. But the training at the Berufsschule for electrical engineers, for mechanics, was almost nil at that point in time. And even in the past 8 years, it's been very slow going in terms of the training. And if we look back at the United States now, same type of problem. The trade schools are not training the people that are needed in this workforce today. So it is extremely difficult for these independent dealers to find the staff to be trained up on, to come in new. So they have to go and actually train existing staff on all of these new technologies. Now, granted, most of a motorcycle, whether it's electric or Petrol is fairly similar. It really comes down to the differences, obviously, with the battery, the motor, the controllers, and the electronics. These are completely digital products. All of our products are connected to the cloud, so you can get all the diagnostics through the cloud. So that's a very different experience for a lot of these motorcycle mechanics. So it will take probably the better part of the next 5 to 10 years to train up staff to make them feel very comfortable. Because there's two things to it. One is the training of it, but two, they need the volume of vehicles to be servicing on a regular basis that get their hands dirty, literally, and become very familiar with the different technologies from the different brands. So I think this is, a challenge and an incredible opportunity in the space, even as a business model altogether. And when you're slowly beginning to see some digital platforms become service providers at scale in certain regions, like in the West, in California, Texas, and up into the Northeast. But I think we're still probably a good decade away from having mechanics that are fully capable and fully knowledgeable about electric two-wheelers and electric four-wheelers, but definitely electric two-wheelers.
Well, awesome, Joseph. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience?
Well, thank you for having me, Roberto. I think the overall message is that electrification of transportation is important in decarbonizing transportation industry. Most people don't know this, but the carbon impact of humans on the planet, about 20% of it, ballpark, globally, is coming from transportation. That's cars, trucks, planes, etc. And we have a huge opportunity right now as we electrify passenger vehicles, 2 and 4 wheels. But what most people don't realize is that to move one person 1 mile in an electric motorbike as compared to an electric Tesla, that electric Tesla takes 10 times more energy than it does to move you on one of our electric mopeds or bikes. So if our goal is to reduce our energy impacts, we really need to think about the choices we make when it comes to our transportation decisions. It's great if you're buying a Tesla or any electric vehicle, great, that's awesome. But we also need to think about what other types of vehicles can we have to move us around on shorter trips so that we don't have as much impact. And I think that's where electric two-wheelers really come in and play an important role in the decarbonizing of the transportation industry, especially in the United States, because the U.S. impact on transportation on our carbon footprint is much bigger. Like 1 in 3 tons of carbon comes out of the transportation industry in America. 1 in 3. So there's a huge opportunity there to really kind of think about, okay, for urban transport, let's think smaller electric. If we're going for longer rides or for whatever it might be where a four-wheeler is needed, we will move to an electric four-wheeler. But it's really balancing that and figuring out how that fits into your transportation mix as a household and as an individual. So that's kind of what I want to leave your readers with is that electric two-wheelers are much more efficient than even electric four-wheelers, and think about that as you make your transportation choices.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Thank you, Roberto.
For more information about the evolution of sustainability, head on over to sustainablecareers.sae.org. And if you're not quite ready to add an EV to your household, you can check out our plug-in hybrid explainer video to help bring you up to speed on the hybrid technology and the vehicles. Be sure to subscribe and listen every week on your favorite podcast platform.
SAE International makes no representations as to the accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. The information and opinions are for general information only. SAE International does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast.